And we are here after a month away with New Jersey State Climatologist Dr. Dave Robinson for our monthly weather roundup. I think we both look the same after 2 months away. We're still looking beautiful as ever for us. And it's good to see you again virtually here as we go into now August. How's summer been going for you?
Summer is moving along pretty darn quickly. That's what it says. It's been interesting on the weather side, that's for sure. On the
Uh,
personal side, it's going well. Nothing exciting at this point.
Yeah, I think most of the excitement's definitely on the weather side here, but I do agree. I feel like this summer's been going by faster than previous ones. I also, as we know, I was away for 3 weeks. That might have something to do with it. And then when you're in the northern latitudes of Ireland and Scotland, which were beautiful, you kind of miss out on that hot and humid weather here. So I feel like I'm like kind of catching up and trying to make up for lost time on that heat and humidity front because there's only so many warm days you get here in New Jersey.
And for those of us who don't like heat and humidity, that's fine.
Yes, yes, everyone's, a lot of people as we're going into later August, love that late August, early September vibe. Typically our driest time of the year as well when it comes to the rain. But we have had quite a number of storms in the month of July here. And, I want to start off on a serious note. And the two fatalities that we had this month due to lightning in during July here. One was in Sussex County, northwest corner of the state, and then another one in Jackson Township in Ocean County. The one in Sussex County was on July the 8th. This was on a golf course, and unfortunately, he was in critical condition and then died days later. And then in Jackson, that was a Cub Scout camp that was at the Black Knight Bowbenders Arching Club. Lightning struck and killed a 61-year-old man and injured a dozen others. Two fatalities in 1 month in New Jersey seems like a lot to me. Where are you on this?
Yeah, I mean it's tremendously unfortunate. I think in the long term, New Jersey averages about, excuse me, one lightning death a year. It's not common in a state of over 9 million people, but it just shows you how dangerous lightning is. When I talk to kids groups, one of the first photos I show is lightning striking the Statue of Liberty. And it's not a Photoshop image, it's pre-Photoshop times from where I retrieved. I did not take that image, but I'm not trying to scare them, but make them aware that lightning kills, as we know. I don't say that to the kids, but talk about the danger of it and how accompanying a thunderstorm is not only lightning, but as we've seen this month, strong winds that can lead to death, excessive rainfall that can lead to flash flooding and death as well. So this has been a very sorrowful month in New Jersey when it comes to all of these different summer storm related injuries and in multiple cases fatalities.
Yeah, it has. And with the lightning, lightning can strike up to 10 miles away from the storm. It doesn't have to be raining over you to be, to have lightning. In fact, in Jackson Township, it was a few miles away and it still struck, right? So, it's always important not only, if you see lightning in the sky, but when thunder roars, go indoors. And I know it sounds a little corny and cheesy, but it's true. I mean, when you hear the thunder, you want to make sure you're getting into a safe space.
Another thing I like to say, and this is a tough one to process, every thunderstorm has its first bolt of lightning. Now, many thunderstorms move into your area, but some form locally. And there, so what do you do? Well, you keep an eye to the sky, and if the sky looks real threatening, dark, turbulent, you can see the clouds moving, the winds are picking up, just get indoors. Just get indoors and away from windows. That's the smart thing to do. If you can't get indoors, get into an automobile, hopefully on high ground, there's only so much you can do, but there is plenty you can do to make yourself safe.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's switch topics a little bit and talk about temperatures. If it wasn't the severe weather, it was the heat in July. Um, I did not actually look at any numbers before this, but I have to imagine it has been hot and humid during the month of July, and probably even more so. Is that where we're at on the 31st day of July?
Yeah, there are some preliminary numbers I've already taken a look at, and I'll throw on my glasses in this darker room to read them. Coastal New Jersey, based on multiple cooperative stations from the Weather Service. It's the 12th warmest July, and that doesn't include data from yesterday, a warm day, or today. About 1.7 degrees above normal. That might not seem like a lot. There's a much narrower range between warm and cool
Right.
July than, say, in the winter. A 1.7 degree difference in the winter wouldn't rank up 12th warmest. But more notable than that, which we've talked about a lot in the past, the maximum temperatures were only 8/10 of a degree above normal. That ranks 20th, ties with a couple of years for 20th. That's notable. But the lows, thank you,
Oh,
humidity. Thank you, humidity. Thank you, humidity. The lows, 2.8 degrees above normal, the third warmest. And when we talk third, that's third going back 131 Julys to 1895. This ranks as the third warmest July along the Jersey coast for daytime, nighttime minimum temperatures or daily minimum temperatures.
fully air conditioning.
Yeah, again, air conditioning is not getting a break. The human body's not getting a break. And with that, it's been very challenging. Not that the days have been cool. 20th rank out of 131 is
Yeah.
still high.
Yeah. Yeah, and we had just today here, or yesterday, I should say, on the 30th, Atlantic City Marina broke a daily record maximum low temperature. In other words, it only dropped down to 80 degrees. ACY Airport also broke the same record maximum low temperature 2 days ago on the 29th. So the nights have been very mild, and we're going to talk about this. We won't get there yet, but it has a little something to do with the ocean waters as well and how warm they've been. But we'll get to that later. But yeah, I mean, this overnight heat is, or the warmth, is a challenge if you don't have air conditioning in particular, right?
Yeah.
And that's always, heat is in any given year the first or second biggest killer in terms of deaths throughout the United States. But yeah, I mean, yes, July is hot. We know that. Like we know July is hot, but this has been hotter than what you would expect for the month of July here. And just kind of looking at some numbers, where are we on the number of 100-degree days that we saw across the state on the New Jersey Weather Network?
We've had, I think, four within our weather network. One this week. It was two or three back in that June heat wave. I can't remember if it was two or three. Not inordinately unusual. You've heard that Newark Airport, I think, has had 6 days of 100. I think tell you the truth, their thermometer, I think, is a little out of whack right now, reading a little high. And the record is 9 at Newark Airport in 1993. And I can tell you with certainty their thermometer was out of whack then because I noted it and inspired the Weather Service to check it. Yet those records still are maintained. So I don't get caught up too much with, one station hitting 100 degrees a few times, but you look just area wide, 95 plus days. I think we've had 7 this month, just this month in New Jersey, and some back in June as well.
Yeah.
Going back to the low temperatures in our 69 station network, there has not been every single July day has had stations with lows in the 70s. Yes, we've had cooler spots get into the 50s, 60s.
Right.
One day, one station got to 49, but there's not been a day this month that at least one or multiple stations in our network have had a low above 70, and they're in urban areas, which we don't have a lot of stations in our network, right smack dab in urban areas, mostly coastal areas.
Yeah, coastal areas. Love that. We love the coastal stations.
With the temperatures.
Yes.
You may get a little break during the day, even though these hottest days when we've been in the mid and upper 90s, the coastal areas have been in the mid and upper 80s for highs. A sea breeze this time of the year isn't all that impressive, especially when the bays and the ocean are running warm.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of coastal station and out of whack, I forgot to bring up our email conversation a few days ago from Fortescue, our coastal station on the Delaware Bay. You said how muggy it was. So Fortescue had a dew point of 88 degrees. That was the maximum dew point at 4 and 5 p.m. on July 25th. Now, pretty uninitiated about dew points. What we would say is anything above 70 is sticky and above 75 is oppressive. I ran out of adjectives for an 88-degree dew point. If you want to think of something, go for it. But you think that dew point is fairly legit. I mean, that's exceptional.
Yeah, otherworldly might be another term.
Yeah.
You only have to look. Another station in our network with very high dew points is Lower Alloways Creek Township up in Salem County by the nuclear plant. It has nothing to do with the nuclear plant, but it has
give people the wrong idea.
Both of those stations, I could take a rock, throw it from the thermometer, and hit the water. That's how close these stations are to the bay. And with that, the bay is cooking. And with that warm water, you're just saturating the air with moisture. Now, could it be 85 for a dew point there? I know that sensors measuring dew point can have a more difficult time when you get very high dew points, and in the 80s are high, but there's no way that dew point instrument is off by more than a couple degrees. So we had mid 80s dew points.
That is swampy. That's what I came up with. Swampy. And I like some high dew points in my life, but 88's next level. All right. Let's take a break here. We're going to come back on the other side. We're going to talk about precipitation in July. We're going to talk about our day of severe, well, one of our days of severe weather in particular, and those warm ocean waters. We're going to end off on a high note. You're listening to the Monthly Weather Roundup.
Hey, big news, South Jersey. Joe Martucci, the region's only duly certified meteorologist, has joined our team at Wibbage FM 94.3, Hot Country 101.3 FM, and Jersey Giant WMID 1340, WCMC 1230. With over 2 decades of trusted weather reporting from New York to Philadelphia, Joe brings unmatched expertise and a total focus on your neighborhood forecast. Friendly, informative, and always factual, our friend Joe Martucci delivers weather fast and first. Finally, South Jersey has a meteorologist who knows the profession and knows your town. Count on Joe and the WIBG WMID local news department for everything you need, rain or shine.
It's summer, and whether you're in Sandy Hook, Cape May, or right here in Point Pleasant Beach, I'm covering the weather like nowhere else. Hey everyone, it's meteorologist Joe Martucci here. All throughout the year, we're covering Jersey Shore weather, but we know during the summer it means just a little bit more. Whether it's the sea breezes, the tides, or those beautiful summer days, we're covering it all here right on my website and on my social media platforms. I'm a local. I live here. You live here. Or maybe you have a second home here, or maybe just coming for the day. It doesn't matter. I'm a certified broadcast meteorologist and digital meteorologist, and one that's been around for nearly a decade here at the Jersey Shore. And if you're someone who wants to advertise with me, well, hey, now's the best time to do that too. So come to my social media pages at JoeMartWX or go to my website, www.cupajoe.live, for everything Jersey Shore this summer.
And welcome back to our monthly weather roundup. You can check out new episodes around the beginning of every month. So we're recording this on July 31st. I say that not just to let you know when we're recording it, but also because there could be a lot of rain later on the 31st after we're recording this. We have flood watch in effect. We have an excessive rainfall, moderate outlook in effect for parts of New Jersey. However, as Dr. Robinson would say, this rain is actually going to count towards August in the Rutgers, New Jersey Weather Network scope of things. Could you just explain why that is real quick? And then we'll get into what we've seen so far throughout the other 30 and a half days of July.
Actually, it's not in the Weather Network because we go midnight to midnight. But COCORAS, our volunteer precipitation program, and the National Weather Service's Cooperative Observing Program, which goes back more than a century, most of the stations in those volunteer networks record in the morning, 6 to 9 a.m. And once they make their recording this morning, that's it for the 31st of July. And any rain that falls after that, up till tomorrow morning's observation time, counts on the record as August 1st. It's just a convention. People aren't volunteers expected to stay up till midnight. That's one way of looking at it. These are manual observations, not automated ones like our networks every 5 minutes. So we can slice and dice any way you want with 5-minute observations. And it's just the standard. So, but I might add, it seems uncanny how it rains the last day of the month, because on June 30th, we had a lot of rain after the morning observing period that counted towards July. So now we're taking the last day of July, perhaps, and counting it towards August. So, it all evens out. The worst is when it rains on December 31st.
Yes.
And that happens because then you count it in another year.
And that well, hopefully our New Year's Eve will be dry this year. But, I think, we had the rain on the 30th. We have the rain on the 31st here. It's kind of balancing, like you said, kind of balancing itself out. So where were we with precipitation through our 30 and a half days of July so far?
As typically is found in the summer, we have a lot of scattered storms. We didn't have a tropical system that soaked the state as a whole. And we don't have nor'easters in July. So we had a lot of hit or miss storms, and some areas got hit hard multiple times, others not so much. But I have some numbers here for coastal,
right,
which did quite well, I might add. The coast as itself averaged almost 5 inches, which is about a half an inch above normal. That ranks in the middle of the pack. But when you look at individual stations, the two wettest stations in the state this month were Howell, in Monmouth County, and Jackson, both townships, in Ocean County. Howell had 12.87 inches of rain this month, when normal's about 4.5, and Jackson had 12.22. Now, mind you, there's no other stations, and we have several hundred of them in the state that had more than about 9 inches. So those two were the exceptions. But even the low end in the coastal counties of Monmouth, Ocean, Atlantic, Cape May, even the driest areas, the driest is Estelle Manor in Atlantic County, 3.19. But all the other stations were above 4 inches. So no one really took it on the nose this month in terms of lack of precipitation along the coast. Although we do have some areas up in the northern part of the state that came in the 2 to 3 inch range. So, a factor of 4 and 5 difference in rainfall across the state.
Incredible. And, Howell and Jackson are also right next to each other, very close. So would it be fair to say that was from the same weather event or events?
It was multiple events.
Yeah,
not always. Not always. There were just some. I like to say sometimes some places it just likes to rain. I mean, we could extend that this month. Tragically, you look to Union County, and Plainfield, and Somerset County is where North Plainfield's located. There are 564 municipalities in New Jersey. Yet Plainfield had 2 deaths from drowning in flash flooding on the 14th, and they had 2 deaths from trees falling on one vehicle. And meanwhile, North Plainfield had that same storm early in the month, had a death from a tree falling on a vehicle. All in just 2 municipalities.
Yeah.
You had 5 of the 7 storm-related deaths this month out of 564 municipalities. It's just uncanny sometimes how, lightning strikes twice, even though neither of those were lightning related, of course.
Yeah.
Just a really tough month when it came to fatalities from various impacts of significant thunderstorms.
Can we talk maybe for another 30 or 60 seconds about that event in Union and Somerset counties? How much rain did we see? And I think a lot of people saw those videos of Route 22 being like washed over, and North Avenue in Union County. I know that well. I grew up in Union. Just flooded for all different spots.
Yeah, it was there. The worst hit places there, Greenbrook over to Plainfield, that area. 5 to 6.5 inches of rain in just about a 2 hour, 3 hour period maximum. So a month to a month and a half of rain just in a couple of hours. And you've got the Watchung Mountains there just to the west of 22, and the water came pouring off of those. The streams, Greenbrook, in Plainfield, there is a community of Greenbrook that suffered flooding, but the Greenbrook rose 11 feet in less than 3 hours. The Bound Brook took a little longer to rise as the waters came down off the Watchungs. It rose about 11 feet, but it took a couple hours more. This is just devastating. People lost their homes in some cases, basements, and tragically lives. What to me is almost remarkable is more lives were not lost in the flash flooding because it came around rush hour, early evening.
Yeah.
The positive there was daylight. We look back to Ida on September 1st, 2021, where 32 people lost their lives from drowning in that event. That was much more widespread. It was more rainfall, and a lot of the flooding occurred after dark because we were talking September with earlier sunset.
Right.
So tragic though this was, it's really quite remarkable how people found a way to escape the worst of the flooding in most cases.
Well, I'd like to think that people heeded the warnings that were happening and staying home. And, we did have other flooding events this year. Not Texas and Kerrville is top of mind, but even in New Jersey, and sometimes it takes a tragedy to maybe prevent another one. Right.
No, absolutely right. And Ida is pretty fresh on our memories too.
Sure.
Sure. We've talked about this before, John. I'll do it very quick. We can make the best forecasts, which were quite good that day. We can take the best observations. We're taking them.
Yeah.
Word can get out to emergency management officials. That's improved. They have to be able to get it out to the public. But there's one last step. The public has to know how to respond to those warnings.
Right.
And if any of that breaks down, we're threatening people's lives. So anyone listening to this, just take heed. When the weather looks threatening, tune in, listen, and if you're asked to do something like evacuate or shelter in place, absolutely do so.
Yep, totally. I do want to touch on one more specific event. That's July 25th. We had a good amount of severe weather that day. I think the sexy part of this was the water spout off of LBI in Beach Haven, which was, by the way, the second water spout of the week in Ocean County. But we did get wind gusts up to 66 miles an hour in Seaside Heights. Lots of lightning with this. Lots of downed trees and power lines in Ocean and Monmouth County. Really came from a cold front moving in from the northwest. To me, at the coast, where I'm focusing on, that probably was the most widespread severe weather event we had during the month of July.
Yeah, but it was only right along the coast. Most of the
Right.
states did not see nearly that
Right.
much precipitation or extreme weather. And
Yeah.
that's just the nature of this month. Um, we've it's all localized. These are summer storms, and an area can be drenched with multiple inches of rain and just miles away, not much. Although you could have the lightning, as we saw in Jackson. That storm brought well over an inch of rain to one part of Jackson, but apparently not where the lightning fatality occurred. So just please, folks,
Yeah.
respect, have the
Yeah.
utmost respect for severe summer weather.
Let's end on a positive note. The ocean waters. We got to end on a positive note. It's summer. We're here at the shore. We want to be at the beach or on the boat, but the water this month and even into June, above average, well above average. We've seen pretty much consistent 70s for the second half of July, even a few spots in the 80s on the ocean. Way different than last year, where we actually, I looked into this in Atlantic City, it did not get above 75 with our water temperature at all through June and July. This is nearly the complete opposite. So, have you been swimming in the water? Have we been seeing you out there in the morning with your swim cap getting out in the ocean?
I have not made it to the Jersey Shore, except I gave a talk in late June down in Cape May and sat on the beach for about an hour. Uh,
Okay.
but otherwise, and dipped my toe in the water. No, I haven't made it to the coast. All I know is our community swimming pool is much too warm right now. After a bike ride, I like to jump in it, and boy, it's not been all that refreshing because the humidity's so high. You
Yeah.
know, when you get out of the water, it's still warm, not that
Right.
chilled when the air is
Right.
dry. But it's very interesting why it's been so warm, and we don't have a lot of time to get into it here, I know. But generally, your hotter summers have your cooler surf temperatures because you've got a strong southerly flow of wind that pushes the water off the coast and allows cool water from below to what we call upwell. That's not been the case this summer. And I haven't looked into it much, but it must have to do with the absence of really strong prevailing southerly flow. It's been more of a stagnant atmospheric pattern, which we've
Yeah.
seen with these localized storms, of course. And so, not a strong enough, persistent enough southerly flow to promote upwelling along the coast. Thus, the surf temperatures have stayed awfully mild.
Yeah, and we're gonna hope it stays that way. We go into August. I would love to see a few 80s in our August here. And one thing too, I looked at the wind rows or comparing how often winds came from certain directions. Up and down the shore, we've actually seen an above average amount of winds from the onshore direction, which is southeast, east, even northeast than usual. And just kind of feeding into your point, when you have those onshore winds, typically you're thinking cooler temperatures, but not necessarily so. So I think we've had a lot of light onshore winds, right, that have allowed some warmer water to come, but also not keeping the coast and, even New Jersey on the cooler side. Kind of tying that in a bow.
Yeah, and remember, the atmosphere has been very warm. And this gets me a little nervous as we head into the tropical season, because the warmer the temperatures stay in our offshore waters, the stronger any tropical system that might head up this way will maintain itself, as we saw with Sandy back in late October of 2012. Sea surface temperatures were above normal, and the storm stayed stronger than it would have in the absence of that thermal positive anomaly. So, we got to be a little careful what we wish for. Now, we've been talking surf temperatures, and that's different than what's happening 100 miles offshore.
Yeah.
It stands to reason the ocean waters around these parts are warmer than normal now at the shore and offshore.
Yep. Yep. And we're going to hope, let's hope hurricane season is quiet. And when we talk at the end of August, early September, we have no news is good news when it comes to hurricanes. We're going to hope for that. All right. We have about 30 seconds left. What's new and exciting with the New Jersey Weather Network?
Now we're continuing to keep the grass cut around our stations. There's a lot of
That's good.
maintenance, and it occurs during the summer. The rain gauges get clogged during the summer with dirt and birds and such. So, kudos to the staff of that go out and maintain these stations in on hot days that we've been experiencing. So that would be my shout out for this month, our field crew that keeps our network humming.
Awesome job, field crew. All right. Well, we are going to say goodbye for now. We'll be back with you at the end of August, right around the turn of the month here. We'll talk about the summer that was. Climatological summer will end by then. Until then, everybody, take care. On behalf of Dave Robinson and me, you are listening to the Monthly Weather Roundup.